this RTA right here, this is the Goblin Mini V3 Revision 2. Check it out. Alrighty then, welcome back YouTube. Thanks for coming by and watching another one of my reviews. Before we get too far into anything, if you hear any background noise outside or whatnot, pay no attention to it. I live in an area where the neighborhood's being built up and they're doing construction outside, so you might hear some sawing, some hammering, things like that. I don't have the best microphone in the world. I'm just using my laptop here. And if it comes through the camera or through the recording, yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about that. Goblin Mini V3. A little bit of background history. About a year ago now, I guess, Youde technology released the Goblin Mini, a little teeny tiny squat tank that had pendulum style airflow control and a little 3/4 post deck. The middle two posts were kind of one post. Anyway, thing was a great flavor chasing RTA. Did pretty decent with cloud chucking as well. Was not without its issues though. Then they released, I guess about 6-8 months ago, the Youde Goblin Mini V2. Same type of pendulum control, and they added top fill capability. Still a couple of issues. Some people were complaining about the juice leaking through the pendulum airflow control because right underneath the airflow control, it just went straight down to your mod. Couple of other issues that were in there as well, maybe a little spitty, a little bit difficult to build on certain coil styles. Anyway, so this year, actually here, like in the last month, they released the Goblin Mini V3 to address some of these issues. And the up and close, I'll go ahead and show you what they've done with some of this, and I'll show you the package contents. But a little bit of a preview here. If you look down at the bottom there, it still has the pendulum style airflow control, but it's not completely wide open. The bottom of the device is a traditional tank, so that if this thing gets a little leaky, a little spitty or whatever, it's not going to leak all over your mod. Also, and you probably saw this in the up and close, juice flow control, and very simple juice flow control. The whole top of the tank just turns. Yeah, so you've got juice flow control now, same type of airflow control, about the same amount of airflow, and they added a couple extra things that I'll show you in the up and close, and I guess we'll just go ahead and get into that in just a minute, but let me give you a preview of the two other things that we're going to review. Youde also has made some of their own notch coils. I'll show you those up and close, but just a little bit of another preview. These are great for velocity style decks, whether you build a vertical or horizontal coil, just because of the orientation of the leads, and they're very slightly higher resistance than most notch coils, so that might be a plus to some people. Also, they released some of their own glass for their Goblin Mini V3. I, of course, picked one up that's black, and it's a little darker than the stock glass. I wouldn't call it black, but it's certainly a dark gray. Just really complements the color of this as well. I'll show you that up close. Yeah, I've got the original glass in there right now. Anyway, yeah, that's all for the preview here. We'll go ahead and cut down, and I'll show you the up and close. See you down there. Alrighty then, so here we are for a little ghetto up and close. Just kind of bear with me, I'm still kind of figuring this whole process out. Yeah, so let's knock the smaller items out of the way, and this is the easiest one to show you guys. This is the glass that they released for their Goblin Mini V3. We'll get into the tank itself in just a minute. Yeah, not a whole lot here. I got this from Fasttech, obviously. Nice little Fasttech orange sticker. Nothing too special about this typical Youde packaging if you've ever had a Youde product. And yeah, that's what I've got there, black glass. You open it up and, well, what was in here, this little box, was the gray-black glass that I now have on the RTA, and a little piece of foamy that was just stuck in the middle of it so that it didn't get all jammed up. It's a decent thickness of glass. I mean, it's certainly durable enough that it's not going to break or anything. What I like about this is that it's an official Youde product, so it's going to fit, and it's going to fit absolutely perfectly. And really, that's all there is to that. Anyway, next on the agenda, and this won't take too terribly long either. These are Youde's own notch coils. These just came out, I guess, about the same time that the Goblin Mini V3 came out. And yeah, there's not a whole lot to these. Comes in these nice little teeny tiny little puck. But what sets this apart from other notch coils, if you look at it, is the orientation of the leads. They're on the top and bottom of the coil, and they're on opposite sides, opposing sides. What that does is, whether you're doing a horizontal or vertical build with a velocity deck, these are already preset. These are perfectly set up for that. And these, opposed to most notch coils, are 0.35 instead of 0.25 ohms. That might be preferable to some folks. I mean, I don't like building too terribly low if I don't have to. And if, I'll go ahead and pull out some other notch coils that I have just to show you a difference. These are the Youde vape that I did a review on a while back. Now, these do have the opposing coil leads, and they are on completely opposite sides of the coil, though. Now, what that does is, and the way they've got this set up, is it makes it good for a single coil build on something like, say, the Serpent Mini. Real pain in the ass to use these on a velocity style deck, though. I keep these around for the Serpent Mini and for any other type of single coil K-Fun style of deck. It works really well. But for the velocity decks, these are just money. These really work great. And yeah, those are the two products. That's really all there was to show you. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this review. And if you get a little bit of glare here, sorry about that. And this is the Goblin Mini V3 Revision 2. And I say Revision 2 because a lot of reviewers have been doing the Goblin Mini V3, I guess, for about a month or so, maybe 2 months now. And they were almost universal in what they reviewed, and one of the complaints was that there's a spitback protection that this tank offers, and they all complained saying that it killed the airflow, and they wish that it was removable, because it wasn't in the review revisions of this tank that they sent out to the early reviewers. I've got the retail version, and the retail version, I'm happy to say, has the spitback protection, but it's removable. It screws out of the RTA itself, and you can just have it wide open. I like that because if you build a build that doesn't have or isn't prone to spitback, you don't need it, and it doesn't kill the airflow. So anyway, there's the packaging. Typical Youde plastic puck packaging. There's the front. Got your QR code there. All kinds of legal disclaimers and information at the bottom there. Package contents, barcode, and typical Youde use guide. And really, that's about all there is to that. And yeah, not a whole lot else. So let's open it up. A little messy inside of there. It's messier than it was stock. Comes with, actually pre-installed with this metal drip tip. Didn't too much care for that, so I don't use it. The tank, of course, is sitting right there. Open this guy up. Comes with a spare clear Pyrex, so now I have multiples of those. Comes with a Delrin top cap. Actually, pretty nice top cap. I liked it just fine, except for one thing, and I'll get to that in just a minute. And in this little slot right there, there is the dual coil adapter. I'll show you that up close in a minute, but what was in their stock was the single coil adapter. And your bag of fun goodies. Now, if you look right there, see if I can get that on camera without getting a whole bunch of glare. That is your spitback protection. That actually screws into the bell of the RTA. And it restricts your airflow by about 50%. They made it removable, so yeah, if you need it, it's there. If you don't, it's not going to kill your airflow. Aside from that, standard pieces parts, you got, instead of a brass screw, you've got a stainless steel, a couple of O-rings, a couple of grub nuts, standard fare. Nothing big there. Trapped in between this and the plastic, standard Allen wrench. Yeah, hex key, Allen wrench, whatever you want to call it, it was in there. So yeah, typical Youde packaging. Not a whole lot to it, and let me tell you, it's a pain to get everything back in there just right. And somehow they had this stuffed in there with the tank on top of it, and for the life of me, I can't do it. Anyway, set that aside for right now, and show you this guy right here. Now let me grab the tank. Yeah, so there's the tank. And at the bottom, 510 pin does protrude a little. I don't know that I would call that hybrid safe. I wouldn't take a chance with it. If you remove that 510 pin, you get clear access to the RTA deck. Here, let me invert this and let some of the juice drain while I'm talking. And it's a standard velocity style deck. This has the 2-post design, 4 nice large lead channels, and 4 massive juice chasms, and ample airflow. And you know, it's just standard RTA where the bottom of it screws off. Hopefully I'm not going to flood anything out while I'm doing this. There you go. And if you look in there, I'm trying to do this without flooding it. That's where that spit back protection screws in. Right there where that big gaping hole is. Alright, this is the single coil deck, and I've got a vertical notch set up in it. And you'll notice with the single coil deck, the 2 posts are receded this way on the deck, a little bit closer to this edge, to make more room on this side. That way you can just pop a coil in there, you've got a lot of room, and there are no juice flow channels right there. Standard 4-hole velocity style deck, that way no matter which way your lead's facing, it'll work perfectly fine. And it's got a very slightly larger airflow right down the middle that I've got situated right over this. And it looks like I've got a ton of wick in there because I do. That is one of the issues I have with this particular RTA. It needs to be wicked to hell. You need to wick the ever-living crap out of this. Not so much with the dual coil deck. Now, the way that this works, and I'm not going to do it right now, unscrew that, and the deck just literally pops out. The bottom of this has a couple little nubbins where those little prongs stick in. That way it can only orient one of 2 ways, and it'll be proper either way that you do it. And then you put the 510 pin back in, screw it back in. Boom. Holds it nice and solid, you're good. On the dual coil deck, you're going to put your coils in, horizontal, vertical, however you want to do it, and then you're going to let your wicks travel down or lead down into these chasms. My experience, even with this one, even with the dual coil, is pack those things. Pack them full. And then they meet up around the side here, and the base of the RTA itself actually holds everything in place. After you're done building, pop her back in. Screw it down nice and tight. And this is one of the things I really do actually like about this. It's got juice flow control. Sorry if I just bumped the camera. Right now my juice flow is all the way open. See the little drop on top of the maximum? And sorry, I had to do that off camera. A little tight to do when it's not on a mod. And there we go, I've moved it to a minimum. And anytime you fill this thing or do what I did and open it up and you change the vacuum settings in there, I recommend doing a couple things. Put it on maximum airflow and minimum juice flow control, and vape it a couple times to get rid of the gurgle. actually not bad at all right now. And speaking of airflow control, still got the pendulum style, and like I showed you before, it's closed off at the bottom. It is a little bit of a bugger to get to, but I mean it's just a little notch that moves, minimum. And you gotta use your nails and get it in there. Maximum. What happens on one side, happens on the other. Boom, that's it. And really, those are the big differences. This is not the stock drip tip that comes with it. Let me talk about the drip tip and top caps that came with that. Because of the way this thing fills up, I mean, the whole top of it screws off, and the drip tip, here, let me close my juice flow off before I flood this. The drip tip protrudes through this just ever so slightly, and then it goes into there. The drip tips that come with this stock tend to stick in that hole, and that's why I don't use that. I'm using my Serpent Mini drip tip, and it works perfectly fine. Now, like most top-filled tanks, I recommend screwing it in just until that O-ring starts to catch, inverting it, letting that air bubble get all the way to the top and all the way around. And this is why your juice flow is closed off. And then screw it down the rest of the way. And again, I just opened it, so I'm going to leave the juice flow control closed and vape a couple times just to get rid of any gurgles. There you go, you can hear it there. You notice a lot more when you open the top of the tank rather than the bottom of the tank to access the deck. There we go, that's about gone. So open up the juice flow control, and there we go. Yeah, juicy fingers. Anyway, yeah, that's about all there is for that and the up and close. So I'm going to pop all this lock back together, and I'm going to meet you back up top. I'll see you up there in a minute, alright? Alrighty then, welcome back. We're back up top, and we're talking about the Goblin Mini V3. We'll get into thoughts and everything here about that, and impressions and blah 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 in just a second. But yeah, you saw what it is. It's really a no-frills RTA that does what it's supposed to do. It vapes. It produces vapor. Right now, I've got it in stainless steel 316 on my VTC Mini. Forgive the screen flicker, that is all over the place. I'm not sure what's up with that. 400 degrees, 40 watts, because I'm vaping a naturally extracted tobacco, and yep, these are stainless steel 316, forgot to mention that. So temp control or wattage works perfectly fine, and it's working. Decent amount of vapor. Did I? Yep, left the juice flow control closed. Let's open them back up. It's getting a little dry. Something you need to keep an eye on with this. Doesn't have air for days. It doesn't have clouds for days, but more than respectable amount of cloud production and airflow for what it is, especially at the 40 watts that I'm vaping this at. So what is it about this thing? That flavor though, man, this thing is chucking some serious flavor. This is one of the best flavor RTAs I've ever seen. This is producing RDA, dripper quality flavor, out of a tank. It really is. It's not without its issues though, and we'll get into that in just a second. What's the airflow like? Let's try to compare this to something that other people might have familiarity with. And the best I can liken it to is the Kinger Sub-Tank Mini version 2, the one that had the airflow on both sides of the tank, or the Top Tank Mini, which also has airflow on both sides. Take that tank, open it wide up. That's about the airflow you're getting out of this. Maybe slightly more out of this, maybe very, very slightly more. That said, it's a slightly restrictive direct to lung hit. That's with the single coil RTA, or the single coil deck in there. With the dual coil deck that I don't have in here, you get very, very slightly more. The holes for the airflow are smaller, very slightly, but you got 2 of them. But it's going through 2 wicks and feeding 2 wicks, and there's more obstruction inside of the actual bell cap. So yeah, you only get very slightly more out of the dual coil mode. Yeah, so let's start with the cons then. Small ones. One, the airflow control. Man, that is a pain to get to. It is a little tiny pendulum, and you need some fingernails or something to get to it. It is really, really difficult, which is a good and bad thing. Once you get it placed where you want, and this thing's sitting in your pocket, it's probably not going to get bumped off. Juice flow control is also, it's nice that it's there, but it's a bit of a pain. What I find I have to do is I've got to actually put my thumb on the bottom ring of the RTA and then twist the top ring to get it to move. Otherwise, I unscrew the tank off of my mod. Externally, that's the big things. I pulled the top off and showed you how the drip tip fits in there and protrudes. I don't know why they designed it that way. Maybe the top cap should have been just ever so slightly thicker. I mean, it's already got that raised bump on it, and they should have just made it flush all the way around. It wouldn't affect the height of this tank at all. And because of that, the drip tip that they include sticks in the chamber. I'm not a big fan of this anyway. It's metal. I don't do metal drip tips. But that chuff cap that they have, pretty nice by the way, also does that. So I've just been rocking my own drip tip. This one happens to come from the Serpent Mini, and hey, it's working good. Not a big deal. A lot of people like using their own drip tips anyway, but it's got to be mentioned. And none of these cons are really, really big. I mean, this is just, functionality and part and parcel of what this is. The biggest con I have for this tank is the learning curve. Wicking this thing is really, really difficult, and it's an exercise in frustration. The first time you wick this thing, you're going to flood. I mean, you have to use tons more cotton than you would ever think possible. I don't think, especially with a single coil deck, I don't think it's possible for me to get a dry hit off of this. I don't. The way that I filled this thing, and I'll go ahead and pull the dual coil out since I don't feel like taking the tank apart right now. The way I built this thing, I put the coils in, or coil in, and with these juice channels, I packed them as full of cotton as I possibly could when the cotton was dry. And as cotton wets, it expands. So these juice channels were absolutely chock full. And you saw that I still get spit back when I do a top refill. Even inverting the tank and screwing it in from the bottom, I still get a little bit of spit back the first couple of hits that I take. After that, good dry hit. I cannot physically fit more cotton in this. That being said though, I mean, if I had packed any other RTA like this, I would think that it would be dry hit city. I don't think it would wick at all. It's wicking like a beast in this thing, so it wicks really well, almost too well for its own good. The dual coil deck doesn't wick quite as aggressively for a couple reasons. One, these wicking channels, there's 4 of them instead of 2, but they're ever so slightly smaller. And 2, you've got more airflow, and you've got 2 coils. And you got twice as much wicking material because you're filling, or almost twice as much, because you're filling 4 holes instead of 2. Because of all that, juice is getting burned more efficiently, and you got more airflow, more coils, more heat, blah, blah, blah. You're burning through that juice, and it's not going to flood quite as badly, but it does flood. And I still, even with this, have to pack these juice channels completely full to the bottom, and I've got to pack them full of cotton. I don't know of any other way to build this thing, and once I do that, it's fine. I don't get any dry hits, and I get minimal flooding only when I'm refilling. Pros. If you're willing to overlook that, and you're willing to go through a pretty powerful learning curve, took me about a week to figure it out and really nail it down, you're going to have a high-performance RTA. This thing really, really chucks. I mean, it holds a decent amount of liquid. They claim that it holds 2 mils, and that's about right. I can get about 2 mils in here. You can get an extension cap that screws onto this and makes the tank about that tall and makes it hold 4 mils. Not particularly my thing. I like tanks small. Flavor. The flavor, man. This is... I don't know. This or the Serpent Mini... I gotta say this edges out the Serpent Mini. I really think so. It's got tremendous flavor. It's absolutely astounding what this thing does, and that's why I overlook everything else. It's not as airy as the Serpent Mini, which in itself wasn't a particularly airy RTA. But like I said, compared to a Subtank Mini or whatnot, it's about the same as a Subtank Mini wide open, the version 2, not the version 1. The version 1 didn't have any airflow. But that's more than enough airflow right there. More than respectable. It chucks some clouds. Yeah, you're going to have a learning curve with this, and you're going to have to sit down and figure out what kind of wicking you have, and it depends on what type of cotton or wick that you use. You might use, rayon or whatever. You're going to have to tool around with it. You're going to have to figure it out. And if you've got a really aggressive coil, it'll wick a little bit better. Not quite as it won't flood. That's what I'm after, because you've got a more aggressive coil actually burning all that juices that's going in the tank and into the chamber, and it's not going to launch hot magma into your mouth through the mouth hole here. Yeah, but I mean, I packed this thing absolutely full. I mean, and it's wicking like a beast, and I can just chain vape this thing. And it just, continues to wick. And it's actually amazing how well this thing wicks. Almost to a bad point. That's the only major gripe I've got with this thing. You've got to learn the wicking. It's no kidding. If you're not willing to tool around with the tank, if you don't like fooling around with the tank that's got a propensity to flood just because it aggravates the ever-living crap out of you, don't get this. Really don't. Get something easier and very forgiving to build, like the Serpent Mini. The Serpent Mini, you can pack that thing full of wick, works perfectly fine, will never flood on you. You probably won't get a dry hit. You can be really anemic with the wick, and you might get a little gurgling here and there, but it's not going to flood. It's very forgiving. This isn't. And I'm not using any particularly aggressive, super wicking type of cotton. I'm just using some cheap organic cotton that I bought. And it's flooding out in this, and it hasn't done this with any other atomizer I've ever used. But I'm willing to overlook it because of the flavor that this thing chucks out. It's not particularly juice efficient either, so keep that in mind. I mean, you see the juice level and how it's going down already. I had this full right at the beginning of the review, and I haven't vaped a whole lot on it. It produces a very dense, saturated, wet, thick vapor. Just not a whole shit ton of it. It just produces a more than reasonable amount, and it does that at the expense of juice consumption. So yeah, that is what it is. Flavor or cloudage, you got to have juice, and you got to use a lot of it. Yeah, not a whole lot else to say about this. Love the glass. It's an official Youde product, and it looks great on this, especially with the black tank that I've got. Love the Youde coils. They're great for velocity style decks, horizontal or vertical build. Real easy to wick, and they're slightly higher resistance. This comes out to about 0.4, and I love the tank. I really do. This is my new all-day tank, in spite of its shortcomings with the whole flooding bit. And flooding is right now, overstating it. Right now I get a little bit of gurgling when I refill, but when I first started building this thing, I mean, it was just oozing out of these airflow holes. It was just bleh. Every time I filled it up, it was doing that. So yeah, you're gonna have to tool around with this a little bit, and you have to play with it and figure it out. But yeah, I think it's absolutely worth the effort. So yeah, I don't want to ramble on too much about this anymore. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and cut the review short here. And with that, I'll leave you with this. Do support advocacy. The fight for vaping it's far from over. August 8th has come and gone. It's been almost 3 months now. Rip Trippers has a fund set up through generosity for the American Vaping Association. If you can afford a few bucks, go ahead and donate to that, because it's going to go to a good, worthy cause. I've donated a couple of times myself. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And I think if anyone is passionate about this type of stuff, if anyone enjoys vaping, if anyone can afford a bottle of e-liquid, if anyone can afford a new RTA tank, gear, anything like that, you can afford to donate $5. and you really owe it to yourself and the vaping community to do it. You know, and I don't think I'm standing on a soapbox here. We're fighting for our rights to do what we want to do so that this doesn't go away. Multiple ways that you can support. If you can't afford that, join CASAA. If you are a business owner, join SFATA. Like I said, donate to the American Vaping Association. I'll provide a link below, and a link to Rip Tripper's video that he posted about that. You can donate directly to a whole lot of vaping advocacy funds out there. I'll put some stuff below about how you can participate and how you can do that. Like I said, I'm not asking you to do anything that I haven't already done. I put my money where my mouth is, and if you're a passionate vapor, you need to do the same. I'll get off my soapbox with that and just say, safety is paramount while we're doing this stuff. Please don't become a news story. Practice battery safety, practice Ohm's law, do what you got to do. If you don't know Ohm's law, don't know battery safety, you don't need to be fooling around with anything that's advanced. Just get something nice and simple and vape. Whatever you do, vape safe, vape on. I'll see you later. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.